Call the meeting to order. If everyone would please stand. Councilman Moy will include the invocation.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's all pray. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pasture. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. But yea, do I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, you comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemy. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome each of you here tonight. We have some important business to take care of, and glad you came. Item number 5 is the approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Have a
Mayor, before we ask for a vote, I just wanted to go over a couple of items that are at your individual seats. We have an updated, in your packet, you'll find an updated agenda, an updated budget amendment. Behind that, you'll see an updated ordinance for the parking discussion we'll have this evening, an updated noise ordinance, and I just wanted you all to be aware that they were at your seats before you voted on the agenda.
Okay. We had a motion, I think we had a motion and a second for approval of the agenda.
Yes.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is a presentation, the public protection classification rating presentation from Fire Chief Moore.
Good evening. So I think I counted up 9 times I've stood up here and preached about ISO in the past, and I come before you tonight to give you the results that we've expected for about 10 years. Some of you may remember we've had previous public protection classification ratings, typically referred to as ISO ratings, in 2006 and before that in 2005. So we were definitely past due. The goal of the state is to inspect each jurisdiction every 5 years. So we had made it a little bit past due. From 1985, we had a 6/9S rating. I'll explain a little bit more about that shortly. Since 2006, we've had a straight 6. We were inspected this year on January 22nd. We've received the results of that inspection, and the new classification will be a 3.
Wow.
That'll go into effect on August the 1st. And this rating will affect residential and commercial properties, or residential and non-residential properties that have fire flows of less than 3,500 gallons. Anything over 3,500 gallons receives an individual rating. You've seen this before. The public protection classification gives a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, depending on the points that you achieve during the inspection. So we fell into class 3 between 70 and 79.99. Quick breakdown nationwide. There are 3,265 departments with a Class 3 rating, and you can see the other numbers for the other classes there. On a statewide scale, there are 61 departments with a Class 3, 16 with a Class 2, and 12 have achieved a Class 1. So the number applies to the jurisdiction that lies within 5 road miles of the fire station, within 1,000 feet of a hydrant. If you see an S or an E, they carry different designations depending on the location that may be farther from a fire hydrant, over 1,000 feet, or greater than 5 to 6 miles from the fire station. And if you see a Class 10, that's basically an unprotected property because it doesn't lie within an insurance district for a fire department. This is what we're graded on as a department: needed fire flows, emergency communications, the fire department itself, water supply, and community risk reduction. The benefits of the public protection classification: it demonstrates the level of fire protection. The lower the number, the greater level of service you receive. Higher ratings can also, or improved ratings can also significantly lower insurance premiums for homeowners and for businesses. Emergency communication, I won't talk about that very much. That's 10% of the overall rating, and we really have no control over that other than some basic policy and procedures. That primarily resides at the 911 center. We did receive 7.99 out of 10 points. Credit for reporting fires was maximum. Credit for telecommunicators was 3.2 out of 4. And dispatch circuits was just over half. A lot of things go in on the communication side: number of circuits, common operating channels, radio channels, the CAD system, GIS systems, all that plays into that 10%. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's how the fire department's graded, and that's 50% of the overall rating. You'll see a breakdown of the earned credit here. For engine companies, we have a 3-engine company need, which we maxed out. We didn't get any credit for reserve engines. We maxed out pump capacity at 3 points. We did squeeze a little bit of ladder credit for specific pieces of equipment. No reserve credit. For the deployment analysis, you should have a fire engine within 1.5 miles road miles from the fire station to every structure, and a ladder company within 2.5 miles. So obviously we've got areas in town that don't fit that criteria, so that's what deployment analysis is. Company personnel, 7.06 out of 15 points. We did not get credit for company personnel for the new hires, so they were not included in this. Training, we got 6.39 points of earned credit out of 9. In our last rating, I think we had just over 2 points, so we've almost tripled that, or just over tripled. And next time that'll probably go up a little more. Thank you.
Chief, if I could ask a question. A full-time complement of employees was not included because the inspection was done prior to them coming on board.
It was
correct?
done a month and 5 days
Right.
before they started.
I just wanted to point that out as to why they were not.
I tried to hold it off for a month, but it didn't work. And operational considerations, that gets into SOPs and administrative policies, and we maxed that out at 2 points.
Chief, going back to that, the ladder service, even though we have our neighbor has a ladder, service? They do not close by
We,
2 miles?
there's
3
not a
miles?
ladder that we get credit for.
Even though they're that close to us?
They're not that close to us.
What's the closest?
Well, there's only 2 in the county, Eastern Pines and Greenville,
Right.
and neither one of them are close enough to give us credit.
And so you have to be how many miles
Well,
to get
per,
any
per
credit?
structure, 2.5.
2.5.
So there's only 2 true ladders. You may see a lot of trucks with ladders on them, but most of them are 75 feet, and that's not a ladder truck. That's a quint.
That's from your station or from the city limits?
That's based on the structure of the actual property. That's why you try to situate the fire station in the center of the territory. So, to get credit for a ladder, it has to be greater than 76 feet. So, again, you'll see here the single engine company within a mile and a half of the specific structure. So if you look at Winterville, we're kind of shaped like a donut, and there's a fringe right around town that doesn't fall within that. We do meet the 3 engine company need and the 3,500 gallon per minute fire flow need on pump capacity. I'll touch on training for a minute because that's a huge part of what we do. Our training credit for that 9 points is broken down into the available credit you see there. We do get some credit for the training ground and the classroom that we have in place now. That should increase over the next few years. Company training, almost 17 points out of 25. In a perfect world, you're knocking out 228 hours of training in a year's time for each member. Not quite realistic, but we do have people that do it. Classes for officers, that includes fire officer certification, National Fire Academy classes. New driver training and existing driver training, we maxed out at 5 points each. Hazardous materials training, we got 50% for that. You have to get each member through 6 specific hours of hazmat training annually. Recruit training, 3.6 out of 5. A recruit would, in a perfect world, get 240 hours of training in the first 12 months that they join. Typically, that's achieved through a fire academy in a career department. For us, we try to situate that 2-3 nights a week, some Saturdays to get it all in. In pre-fire, pre-incident planning, we got 11.4 out of 12. We should be updating pre-fire plans on each non-residential structure on an annual basis. And again, those operational considerations, standard operating procedures and incident management systems that we use, we got maximum credit. Water supply is the next largest category because it's really hard to put fires out without water. 40% of the overall rating. So we got 17, just over 17 out of 30 points for the supply system. We almost maxed out on the hydrants, and we got a perfect score on inspection and flow testing. So we basically have to touch each fire hydrant in town twice a year to get that credit. A lot of what we're graded against may or may not be realistic. The buildings at Pitt Community, the public schools, the churches, each one of those maxes out at needed fire flow, and it's very few times that you're going to have fire hydrants with 3,500 gallons a minute flow rates. And those flow rates include up to 2,500 gallons a minute. You have to be able to sustain that for 2 hours. And if it's a 3,500 gallon a minute fire flow, you have to sustain it for 3 hours. So that's a lot of water. And we've made a lot of strides, I'd say the last 5, 6, 7 years on the system. You're also graded on the hydrant distribution, how the hydrants are situated around the district, and the proximity to the structures. when they do the inspection, they basically pull random structures out, and you have to show them where the hydrants are, flow test them, show how much water you have at each site. Again, we got almost perfect credit for the fire hydrants. And we received just over 17 out of 30 points for the system itself. Only way that's going to improve is if we were to take out a 6-inch line and put in a larger line. So a lot of that comes with some extreme cost. Community risk reduction. In the old days, this would be called fire prevention. A lot of programs fall under this. Smoke alarms, fire inspections, building inspections, child safety seats. So we received 4.39 out of 5.5. So that's not perfect, but it's pretty close. We did lose half a point for divergence. That basically balances the water supply versus the fire department. If one of them's really good and one of them's not as good, it evens that out. Some of the factors that come into community risk reduction, adopting the fire code, which we've done. We always adopt the most current edition of the fire code, and we enforce the fire code. Public safety education, we received 1.87 out of 2.2. That's very difficult without a dedicated person that just does public fire education. In fire investigation programs, we got 0.97 out of 1.1 points. And that also gets into the having the full-time staffing dedicated to just that function, which is very difficult to do. Most departments, that's a parallel role, with your fire inspectors. You'll see the earned credit there. We didn't get credit for fire prevention staffing because when you base it on a 40-hour work week and then you divide that out, it's hard to do without having somebody in there. Fire prevention certification and training, they look at the whole department, how many people are certified with each of those certificates. This also takes into account your building inspections program, doing fire safety checks on every structure before a CO is issued. And the fire prevention programs, we got most of that, 14.4 points. And again, that's the car seat, smoke detectors, remember when for seniors, all those programs. We did max out at fire reporting. We automatically report that to the state and to the federal government. And again, the organization and staffing, you're looking at this for inspections, and then you're looking at it for investigations, and then you're looking at it for public fire education. So you're kind of dividing between 3 different areas there. And that's it. That's how you get a Class 3 public protection classification rating. I think we do have some obvious areas for improvement, which are very easy to identify after you go through the inspection. So I expect next time we'll probably do a little bit better.
Chief, I couldn't be prouder of you and your folks and all the work that went into pulling everything together to ensure that we have what we needed to make such a vast improvement, so congratulations.
Thank you. It is a all-encompassing inspection. I mean, it looks at everything. It pulls in a lot of other town departments, that we have in place now that we hadn't had in the past. So we gain credit in a lot of areas that we previously didn't. So.
I do also want to thank those departments because it certainly takes everybody to pull together to make this happen. So that's a huge accomplishment. We should be proud.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, I just like to make a comment. I see that we have some of your staff that's here, and just want to say thank you guys also, what you have been part of this ISO level of excellence I mean, I was on the fire department for 20 years, and we didn't ever reach the level of a 3. I think we got as low as a 5.
6.
That's the lowest? 6? Okay, 6. I thought we got at least a 5, but a 6, okay? But now we're at a 3. I
So
just want to say thank you guys also.
I'd start talking to your insurance agents after August 1st.
Good.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Very good.
One quick question, Chief. I mean, obviously, we're going from a 6 to a 3, so what kind of savings are our citizens going to see in their insurance?
I spoke to an agent today, and on a run-of-the-mill $100,000 house, $50. So if you multiply that across all the houses in town and the values on those houses, you know, it's subjective. It depends on
Sure.
which company, but I don't have any information on how to estimate that for a business, but I'd like to find out.
Thank you.
Sounds good. My insurance went up $100 last year. Okay. Moving on down to item 7 is public comment. And the board asked me to read this several years ago, so I'll start doing it. The public comment period of 30 minutes provides an opportunity for residents to comment on any item included in the agenda or to address the town council on any other matter related to the town of Winterville. For an item included in the public hearing section of the agenda, residents should address the council at the time the mayor invites public comment on the item. No public comment may be made to the council during the meeting except during the public comment period or as part of a public hearing. Individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and no more than 3 speakers may address the council on a single matter. The town council may elect to take no action on the matter addressed by a speaker, may schedule the matter for further consideration at a future council meeting, or may refer the matter to town staff for disposition. Copies of the public comment policy are available in the rear of the assembly room. And we have several folks that have signed up to speak, and our clerk over here tells me he has moved the little timer so that the speaker, whoever it is, can see when this time runs out, his or her time runs out. The first person that signed up was Mr. Glenn Johnson, and I don't see him here.
See Mr. Johnson.
It's his anniversary date, isn't it?
It is, and I know that he definitely planned to be here, so I hope all is well, but we'll check on him definitely.
Okay, the second one is Patricia Roseman.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Roseman. Address is 5532 Gardnerville Road in Ayden. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight about the market on the square. I would like to thank Stephen and Josh for their support of the market. I have a business called Patty Cakes, and I've been involved with the market since it began 3 years ago. I've handed out flyers to vendors to promote the market on Facebook. In the 3 years, I have not seen enough backing from the town to promote the market in the same way that other events in Winterville, like movie night, the baseball, and other things. We as vendors come out every Thursday for 5 hours with our product that we have made, our time and money that we have put into our business to sell at the market, and come away with making enough to pay our gas, our time, or our supplies. This is how we make our money. Without the support of the members of the community and the council having a person to give 100% to promote the market is why it should be. it is not worth the time and energy for us to come out there if we don't have the people to come and buy our products. Without the vendors, you don't have the market. Without the people coming out to support, then you're not going to have the vendors, which they are leaving because they're not making the money. I have been vending at the Umbrella Market in Greenville. This is my 7th season. I believe things that bring the people to sell, bring the people to the market, the selling of wine, the breweries that sell the beer, the bands, and the food truck. Local media stations that help promote it also, which we find that they don't come to Winterville to promote the market. Having a large banner at the major intersections will help promote the market also. I believe having the market every other week with a theme is a good start. And I hope that will bring back the vendors and the people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one is Mr. Calvin Henderson.
Evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and I'll be very brief. Several years ago, when our greatest leaders of our time, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated, "The time is always right to do what is right." In recent weeks, you, our elected officials, has been working on a recommended budget fiscal year 2019-2020 that many of us had a chance to review and appreciate your hard work. However, speaking on behalf of many of our taxpaying citizens and voters who each of you was elected to represent, and especially those that are frail senior citizens who I'm here speaking tonight, mainly on behalf. We are concerned at your very concerned at your recommended budget as presented. We are all aware across this country that honesty, trust, credibility has long disappeared in our government and local government. Corruption, dishonesty has become the byword. Politics, backdoor deals has taken over our government. Certain terms such as general fund, fund balance, balanced budget, infrastructure, deficit, sustainability, and many other terms is a word many of our elected officials of today use to manipulate our people as they continue to get elected over and over again. Your recent statements in the 919 article, one of electorate to hold steady for 7 years, we are very proud of some of you, our board members, who oppose this recommendation. But we feel that they really understand the plight of this ordinary citizen, one of them. Question: what happened to the 20-year power deal the mayor signed with Florida-based NTE Energy August 2015, and the 20% cost saving that was stated in the initial sale pitch to join NTE? What happened to NTE Energy Seth Shortridge promise that the private-public partnership is beneficial to Winterville and that saving to the town is approximately slightly more than $1 million a year? This would translate into real savings on people's bills. This deal was scheduled to begin in 2018, according to Assistant Town Manager Ben Williams. We feel our citizens, taxpayers who are expecting some form of decrease in their utility bill at least by 2020 has been betrayed and lied to by our elected officials. There have been too many other deals signed with mayor, such as the Greenville Utility, for our citizens not to get some form of immediate decrease. Please be reminded that this is an election year, and our voters all need to be educated. This is not a threat, but there is much education to be done when it comes to the services we deserve in Winterville and are not getting. Two words that I like to use and remind you:
They are accountability and transparency. Those who are serving your service and your voice should be citizen first and not what benefit me. We have no qualm against you having a $250 increase in your salary. We think you deserve it, but we still think the citizens should be first because we are the one that voted you in office. We are the one that you are to serve, whether you like it or not. And we will continue to be in your face because we elect you, and we thank you for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Okay. The next one that is signed up is Mr. Ted Carr.
Little balancing act here. Hopefully these things are going to end up in the dumpster at the end of the month. I'll tell you what, I'm tired of this. We got it, that's fine.
Good
Thank
luck.
you. My name's Ted Carr. I've been a resident of Pitt County for over 40 years. The last 5 here, just down around the corner in Barefoot Landing. Winterville is a wonderful place to live, a wonderful place to raise children. Before I get into just my 1 or 2 questions, I would like to thank the fire department. I am a personal recipient of their great service, including my 94-year-old mother. So I do want to thank you, gentlemen. You put it on the line every day. I appreciate it. Okay. As I said, my name's Ted Carr. On the local social media, there's been a lot of things kicking about with regards to utility rates, household repairs, insulation, back and forth. I'm looking at things more, I'm an NC State engineer, so please, my vision's a little bit different than, I guess, the norm. But I'm looking from a consumer standpoint, and what I want to do is ask the board about future planning. Is there anything in works, like some of the utilities do, where there's a service where an expert comes out to the different homes and assists the consumers in spotting specific areas for improvement in insulation, storm doors, windows? You'd be surprised how many people are blowing AC into their crawl space, or their heat is just not functioning because the ductwork is just old and the joints are not taped up properly. A lot of those things can be identified by some of the experts that the utilities typically offer as a service. So I would encourage the board to reach out if there's any way that we can get that service in and dispel some of the things. Some folks are complaining about $200, $300, $400 utility bills each month, which is outrageous. But some of that has to be borne because of the nature of the property. And so that should be something that's taken a look at. In addition, down the road, there's a lot of utilities that are also promoting solar power. And as the technology comes through more and more, it's really amazing as what you can do. Some places are actually selling power back to the utilities. My research for the area indicates that there's a possibility of a 50 to 70% monthly reduction in your bill if you can go ahead and invest in some solar panels. And just throwing out the idea, it might be worth taking a look at for some kind of study to indicate, because it'd be wonderful. I think there's a lot of companies that would love to approach the board and say, if we can get 25 or 30 places to go ahead and those individuals to invest, we'll give you a good price on the installation, and it could prove to be a very good pilot program. Okay? So just wanted to plant those seeds. I think we need to take a look forward here. In addition, my feelings are businesses and individuals building homes do look at utility rates, and if we're not competitive, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. So long term, please use that as some guidance in the future. And then the last thing is there was a publication stating that Electricities is having their annual meeting up in Kings Mill, Virginia. Is anybody from the board attending that?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, what's the ROI that we expect to receive from attendance to Kings Mill?
Was that the electricity conference you were speaking of?
Yes, sir, August 10th through 12th.
I think several members of the board is going to attend.
Okay, and what's going to be the outcome from that?
Well, we we learn a lot of things. I went last year, and one of the things that, excuse me, I learned, you mentioned putting solar at homes. Studies have shown that it takes somewhere between 19 and 20 years to recover the cost to convert from what you got to solar. So is it worth it in the long run? That's one of the things that I learned last year at the conference. And it was one gentleman that spoke, and very interesting. His theme was change. And he said, this whole world is changing. He predicts that within 15 years, all automobiles will be electric. That's his prediction. And also, he's saying that solar or solar farms will be producing all the electricity used in the United States. I don't believe that, but that's what he said. But that's some of the things we learn at these gatherings that we go to.
Okay. Well, I know that the latest that I've read, there were some churches up north in areas that don't have the sunshine that we do that have reduced their monthly bills by 70%, and the total installation for a large church was $45,000. So it's not going to be a 15-year return on investment. It's going to be much quicker than that, believe me.
That's what was reported at one of the meetings I went to.
Well, I understand, but their business is to sell electricity, not solar.
You don't just put a panel up. You got to make all kinds of changes to your electric into your house. and all
Absolutely.
that, according to them. And
But that's what I'm saying. It's
I'm no
something that,
electrician, so I don't know.
right, it should be something looked at because the technology has changed, just like the computers, okay? The things we do with wristwatches nowadays, the cell phones, et cetera. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Also,
was there another-
you was correct, because I built my house in 2003, just had to replace the AC unit downstairs, and when the AC guy went in to take out the return, he said that you've been heating the bottom of your house. When they built the house, they butted up the return and then put the tape there. And so I was getting dust and just heating underneath. And so I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's not
yeah.
uncommon, and
Because even on a new house, so I mean, we're reading a lot of stuff, talking about your electric. There's some pre-maintenance stuff that you need to do on your own to kind of look, because I mean, you take for granted that contractor's doing what he's supposed to do, but in my case, he didn't do what he's supposed to do, and I wound up losing a unit, costing me $5,700 to replace a unit.
All right.
So, and then learned that I was heating underneath. I wasn't happy, but I'm not on the city, I'm on Greenwood Utilities.
Okay.
So, I mean, hey,
It's different.
it hurts, but.
Well, like I said, an expert coming in would be able to identify that. Not too many people are anxious to get into
And I
the crawl
think
space.
what you're saying is, and I think that places like Roanoke Electric down there, I think they utilize that service where they send someone out.
We're getting ready to tell you about the service we already have in place for
Okay.
energy audits. So I'm gonna ask Robert to come up and talk about the program we already have in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
do appreciate the time.
Town staff currently offers energy audits to anyone on our system. It's as simple as a phone call. We have the equipment and we have the staff. The only requirement we have is that you let us in your home. We'll go through it top to bottom. We'll look at your insulation, your windows. We have thermal cameras that can show us where you're losing your conditioned space, and your energy costs are being affected by it. All it takes is a phone call. You can contact me at 215-2422, and I'll get the ball rolling.
And Mr. Carr, if we can get you any additional information to help with the social media post,
I'll be posting that to the
Thank
folks
you.
that have been complaining.
I've been following those posts, so any additional information you'd like to put out, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. The next person that I have is, Deputy Sheriff Ivan Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, the rest of the panel. My name is Ivan Harris. I am a member of the Greenville Moose Lodge. And I know we were here a month ago. We were talking about that the ordinance was going to be rewritten. We got a copy of it today, about lunchtime. Have not had a lot of time to look over it. There's a couple of things that if someone on the panel knows on the board is what part of it do you feel that will reflect on the Moose Lodge? I know on the first page, A under 96.0.2 or 0.02, down in the bottom of that paragraph, it says noise be between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. There'd be no noise. Well, that's 11 p.m. And like I say, I'm not upset with anyone, but there's been numerous times that the police department came out when there was nothing going on at the lodge, maybe cooking hamburgers or hot dogs. No music at all. But they came out because of loud music complaint. And I have talked with Mr. Whiters. We're not upset with him, but I'm just saying that I think if he had come to us, we could have resolved this thing without it even being here. But it didn't, so this is where it's at. But I would like someone to explain to me what this, in that paragraph, which is A, under 96.02, where it says, music is across the property boundaries or inside the confines of the dwelling and unit, the house, apartment, or another person between the hours of 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. And then it said, or at a distance of 100 feet or more in any direction from the device that's making the noise. This gentleman's house is approximately 100 from the fence that's behind the lodge. It's approximately 140 foot from there to the back corner of our building. No doubt at some time it has been loud, but we try to keep it down. But, you know, sometimes when you got people in there, you go over there and tell them to turn it down, they turn it down. The time you walk back to the other side, they think they can ease it back up a little bit. We do not want to disturb anybody. We don't have any problem with anybody. We try to be good neighbors. There's numerous people behind us. They come back on our property up there to walk their dogs. No problem. We put up with it till about a year ago. I finally put up 2 signs asking them to please clean up after their pets because it gets kind of rough out there in July mowing grass. But anyway, that's just one thing. But so I know that several of the complaints, and I'm not talking about the police department because, like I say, Mr. Mayor, you know, I spent 30 years with the sheriff's department, so I mean, I've answered many complaints that there was nothing to when I got there. I understand that, but it's just that we try to do the best we can. We do things to help people. I mean, I could be up here tomorrow still trying to tell you all the places, the people that we help. And the way membership, I think that's not just with us, but it's everybody. Membership has gone down, and we're kind of at the point where we don't have much choice sometimes but rent the building so we can pay the light bill and water bill and gas bill and all that to try to stay open. Where Greenville Moose Lodge used to have 3,500 members, we're below 100 now. But if anyone can tell me what that paragraph A, exactly what that entails. It said the playing by any person, firm, or corporation used, operate, or permit to be played, used, or operated any television, radio, audio system in a motor vehicle, record, tape player, compact disc player, drum, music, instrument, loudspeaker, communication system. And it goes right on down to said, sound production or reproduction system or device in such a manner that it is plainly audible across property boundaries or inside the confines of the dwelling unit, house, or apartment of another person between the hours of 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. Now we always, and that's understood, they shut the music down at 11 o'clock.
Mayor, members of the council.
And-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna suggest that, Chief Wilhite will be coming up to discuss specifics in the noise ordinance, if that's okay. I think he can address some of the questions you may have about how any changes might be applicable to the Moose Lodge.
Right. But like I said, we want to get along with everyone. And we just got, it's out there where the most of us go out down there is getting on up in age, but we go out there and sit down and some of them play gin rubbish, some of them shoot pool, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Okay. Moving on, item number 8 is consent agenda. Do I hear a motion we approve the consent agenda or remove any items?
Make a motion to approve.
Have a
Second.
motion for approval
Second.
and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Excuse me. Item number 9 on the old business is the parking ordinance. I'm assuming that the chief is gonna cover that.
I don't know if Don's I'm not exactly sure who's covering.
Travis?
The parking ordinance.
I'll be glad to start on it, and I think Travis is going to follow up a little bit on it. What this addresses is the area on Railroad Street that the first section is for the handicap spots, the two that were newly installed, and the one on this side in front of the police station. And then the short-term parking is for the 2 spaces that was discussed some time ago back there. And it really, what it does, it locates it to an address instead of some businesses. If you will remember, it talked about 2 businesses that we weren't sure about. So what this does is it ties it to the 2592 Railroad Street and then the properly installed signage. I would draw your attention to those two spots that it is limited to 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Like Don was saying, this is just cleaning up the ordinance. The prior ordinance listed some names of some businesses and also for the handicap spaces and listed 20 minutes for the unloading zone on Railroad Street. Since we did the project, completed the project, we've properly signed and striped 2 new handicap spaces with a new handicap ramp. So we're going to adopt an ordinance assigning those 2 spaces as handicap spaces so they can be enforced. Also, we're going to adopt the new ordinance, if council desires, proposing the 2 unloading spaces in front of the dance studio, but we just assign that as the address. If adopted, we'll install signs on each of those 2 parking spaces. It'll be right in front of the dance studio.
So basically, if the dance studio decided to move, we would have to go through a whole process to get those 2 spaces,
Repeal, we would need to,
regular policy.
yes, ma'am, we would need to repeal the ordinance if we wanted to do away with it. But I can see those spaces benefiting other businesses as well during the day. If somebody needed to run into the flower shop and grab a bouquet of flowers or something, you know, when the restaurant was there on the corner, if they wanted to park and run in and grab a biscuit. But we would have that option at any time to repeal the ordinance and remove the signs.
And that's a fairly simple process. It would just need to be done in a meeting.
What about the rest of Railroad Street, all the way down? We got parking, people parking all the way down, you know, from the handy mark on back, you know, is that included in this ordinance?
No, sir. Only thing in this ordinance is assigning the 2 new handicap spaces that we did right here between Depot and Main, and the 2 unloading zone spaces, the 5 minutes time limit in front of the dance studio. We're not doing anything outside of that.
Well, I like to see that looked into too, also, because, you know, still parking on both sides, so.
You'd like looking to do an angled parking in one way?
Well, just parking in general, time stamp or whatever, you know.
Assigning a time limit to that.
Yes.
That's something we can definitely look into, probably with the police chief's assistance, and come up with a.
Many towns have done that, have made angered residents parking, even going to the Main and Mill, that would hurt their business also. They would expect the timeline would be difficult for that business. I wouldn't want to do anything to hurt businesses, and doing that would hurt business for the timeline. It should be pro-business, not against businesses. We have people in class 4 hours at a time, 6 hours at a time, defense to drive at night. Where are they gonna park? Should have a timeline. So I would be against that.
Got the other side too, folks going to that library, and some people are staying for a short period of time, some people are staying for an extended period of time, so.
Parking ordinance is on the books at this time. I make a motion to approve the parking ordinance we have at this time.
Councilman Moore made a motion to approve the changes as presented.
I didn't hear it. We
Motion.
have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
Have
you.
we had any complaints from the businesses down on that end about parking? I know we've got specific parking lots. We got the one that's the Dixie Queen, and then one that I call it Main and Mill. I don't know if your business is part of that parking lot or not. Have we had any complaints about, I know when it gets crowded up here at night, I'm not up this way. I'm on the other end.
I haven't personally had any, but I don't know if the chief has had any.
But I know that it can be, I have been up here and I've seen look like everything up here was filled up.
There's a lot of people that park downtown for various reasons.
You got two breweries that are gonna be coming soon too. I mean, I don't think you can put a time limit out there. I don't think anybody wants to walk in, dump down a beer and walk back out and get you the car. They're gonna be looking to stay a while.
Just for informational purposes, time limits are usually restricted to the business day.
Cause I've been wondering about parking on this end for that brewery, where, you know, where's the planned parking at? Cause, you know, that way, at night, when I've been up there, it's been full. I mean, it's really full along the street and in the parking lots, which is good for the businesses. But, I'm, you know, when it gets down this end, I don't know. I
Well,
don't
is
know whether
that
you-
lot gonna be available for parking
I don't know.
where it's got the tree in it?
I don't think so. No, I think they have plans for that lot as well, so.
I think in front of town hall would be, you know, there'd be, usually when the employees leave at 5, it opens up a lot of spaces in front of town hall.
I imagine they're gonna utilize the on-street parking as
Also-
they can find it.
Got
Also-
those DPS cars there, all along there, that take up a lot of space.
And that might be something we could coordinate with them and ask them to use all, you know, we have plenty of parking in town that they could use that wouldn't be in front of a business.
The next one's gonna be the one that the brewery's gonna be involved, and the new one too. They're gonna be outside drinking at night,
Well,
and music at night.
Cause on weekends when people are having events up here, I noticed that, you know, that's somewhat of a problem parking because you got those spaces there. Of course, no one's on this side, but, it does seem to kind of tie up quite a few spaces.
yes, ma'am. When I've been through here in the evenings, especially, you know, when, like there's dance classes going on, I mean, all those spaces are usually full. It's a lot of people downtown,
And
which is a good
large
thing.
crowd at Rhino Auditorium this weekend for the dance studio. Rhino Auditorium was packed.
Could I ask if there's any council direction to do anything further with parking in the downtown area? Just so I'm clear.
I just asked to look at it, to see.
And we probably do need to look at it with,
Okay.
especially with the new businesses.
Right.
now, Because that is gonna be,
And then you going back to, like the lady just said, you want to be able to market, like your market on the square. I mean, even if you get people to come, you still want to have somewhere for them to park. I mean, the whole point, when you want someone to come into your town, you want to make it as easy, accessible to wherever they want to go. But if you don't have any parking, I'm not gonna come. I'm gonna keep on moving. So, I mean, you know, that's what you want to look at. So we just need to look at parking. We want to entice businesses. You want to be pro-business, we can be pro-business. But at the same time, we got to make it adequate so that people can come and enjoy themselves.
We'll take a look at parking in the downtown area, overall area, from a broad scale perspective and be back with what we're able to put together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the noise ordinance.
Should we vote on the other one that passed, the parking ordinance?
Oh,
We have a vote?
I thought we voted in.
Yeah, we voted on the ordinance.
Motion second.
Yes, it
Parking
was
ordinance?
approved unanimously, thank you.
They voted
And noise.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I think you have a copy of our proposed noise ordinance in front of you, and it seems like what I told the town manager earlier, the elephant in the room is the Moose Lodge and amplified sound, and the close proximity.
Amplified sound is always the elephant in the room.
That's right.
That's the reason we're talking about it at all.
And the close proximity that they are to a residential area. And the gentleman was correct when he said that paragraph A on the second page is going to be what applies. And unfortunately, I think we're at a sticking point here because we're talking about amplified sound. And when the renter rolls in with a industrial size speaker and a receiver that can produce the type of sound that is disturbing the neighbors, and that is allowed, then there's some culpability there with the lodge, in my opinion. It's like telling somebody they can't drink at your rental, and they roll in with a couple of coolers of beer, and the rule is don't drink, but there it is. So the amplified sound part and the proximity to residential areas in this particular case, I think our old ordinance probably, it was in violation as well as the new ordinance. Now, there's some permitting changes in here that allows for 4 permits per year for a single place. But there's also some verbiage in there about not having more than 2 in a 30-day period. That would be back-to-back weekends, and that, I'm sure, is constructed that way to relieve the residential impact of such a permit. Why we don't allow amplified sound in our rentals at the community room is obviously because we've got full-time firefighters a couple of walls away trying to sleep and different things. And why we didn't have this problem with the Kiwanis building is because they were in an industrial area where there are no homes. So we didn't really have a loud music issue there. And our loud music calls, other than this one particular area, are pretty slim. I actually had one this weekend in my neighborhood. There was a graduation party over on Pine Tops that got a little bit out of hand. So it's not just isolated to this event, but it's not as frequent. So I don't think this ordinance is going to fix the Moose Lodge and Mr. Whitehurst and his surrounding neighbors' issue, but I think it's going to give us a tool where officers can do a better job. There's a determination page in here that helps them in their assessment of what's reasonable or not. And even if it is inside the scope of the hours that are listed on the amplified sound, on the front page, it talks about unreasonable and disturbing noise, which it could apply if the resident thinks it is, they're being impacted in that manner. And I don't think a decibel level would have fixed this problem, or any other device that we looked at when we were devising this ordinance would have fixed that problem either. So we're going to continue, if you choose to adopt this, we're going to continue working with the lodge, the residents. I'm even thinking about a more proactive approach about having an officer wander around out there before we're called. Because usually after we're called, sometimes it's too late. The word gets out that we're coming and everything's quiet, and all those things that can occur. We can't prohibit or make the rules for the lodge like we can in our own buildings, so we're obviously not going to try that. But I would say our rentals have not subsided one iota by not having amplified sound. Our buildings are rented every weekend, every day, both at the Ops Center and at the community room across the street. Just an idea maybe for the lodge to consider.
I would agree with Chief. You can't, it would be difficult to write an ordinance that fixes this issue once and for all. It's an enforcement issue. We've tried to strengthen some of the enforcement measures. We've tried to take a look at some of the verbiage and how it's written. Obviously, when you start talking about loud and disturbing, that is subjective. What is loud and disturbing to one is not loud and disturbing to all. So we realize that the ordinance in and of itself is not a perfect instrument. It just tries to give everyone some frame of reference in order to work within. Having said that, I like what Chief's got in mind is some of the proactive measures. Those types of measures are actually required in other ordinances. Depending on the number of people that attend an event and the type of event, some places you are required to hire off-duty police to stand by for noise and a plethora of other reasons. I don't think we're suggesting that at this juncture. We're just trying to, again, continue to work with the people involved in the most numerous amount of complaints we hear to try to handle that. So hopefully we'll try to answer any questions. We've taken out the one change between what you have at your table and what was in the packet was in the first section under 96.02. You saw a paragraph that references unnecessary noise. We removed that paragraph because we felt like it was well handled in the loud and disturbing part of that section. So that's really the only change that you see between what you received in your packet and what you have before you this evening.
When you were talking about, permits, you were talking about, I mean, certain number, would an activity that ended before 11 o'clock at night need a permit?
The permit would allow them to exceed the noise ordinance for a 4-hour period, as long as it was before 11 o'clock, so let's say 7 to 11. It would allow them to exceed what a normal violation would be. But that permit would only be issued 4 times a year and only twice, not in subsequent weekends back to back.
And that would be only if it was declared you couldn't have amplified music like these, like the 2 facilities here in town.
If they declared that they wouldn't allow it, then they wouldn't need that permit. But anybody can apply. Any citizen, and we have had a lot of them with graduations and things, have come to apply for permits, and they're for a 4-hour afternoon barbecue in their backyard or something like that. And those are really what the permits are intended for, not something that's happening every weekend or every other weekend when there's a rental.
How do you come up with the number 4, Chief?
The number 4?
Yeah, the 4 permits, how do you come up with the number?
I looked at quite a few noise ordinances from different jurisdictions, different cities around the area and outside the state, and that was a common theme, that you wouldn't issue a permit to the same location so many times where it was just a constant, well, I got a permit and it's loud, and that's looking out for the citizen who lives near this location, so they're not constantly being bombarded with a permit to exceed.
I was involved in writing the original one for Greenville, so that tells you how long I've been around, 100 years. And 4 times seemed to be, permits were being used to get around the noise level. So there were people getting permits every weekend.
Okay.
So that's why when they backed up and regrouped, 4 seemed to be in
I was just
once a
wondering,
quarter.
4, because it's 12 months in a year, so.
Once a quarter instead of 12 times
Right.
or
6
even
times.
twice, yeah.
Okay, that's what that was the only reason I was asking.
But is that common for I'll say an event place like the Moose Lodge is, that, people are going there to celebrate? Would that be common for those kinds of places? I can understand if in somebody's yard or at your house, you wouldn't want to give a permit to people in that neighborhood, to disturb that neighborhood every weekend. But for a place such as the Moose Lodge, would that be?
My experience has been that most of the event places like the Moose Lodge are not usually located near residential areas. So it's not something that at least I've dealt with in any of my jurisdictions with regularity.
So this will affect the Shriners building out there?
If they rent their building, yes.
So, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
It would affect the Shriners building as well.
It would affect all facilities
Because
of the
it's
like.
out there, but it's a few houses, but.
It would actually affect the brewery that's going across the street as well.
Yeah,
Okay. Anything else? As the chief knows, it's been a pet peeve of mine, is exhaust noises from vehicles. And it's covered in this new order. And, I just hope I see some enforcement.
Well,
There are so many trucks out there that have,
I'm not talking about trucks. I'm talking about, there's a car in my neighborhood, a little black car. I guarantee you makes as much noise as any 10-wheeler truck you've ever seen. And I think it gives him a lot of pleasure to leave, Cooper's Point and come out on Cooper Street and just see how much noise he can make with that car. And there's a lot of them like that. When the noise rattles pictures hanging on the wall from the exhaust systems, like I say, I'm glad to see this is covered in this ordinance.
Staff stands ready for your direction. We'll certainly go back and do some more work if we need to. Just let us know what you'd like to say.
There was one idea that I think that would be very, on a positive note, what Chief stated about if we could have an officer to come and to be there at the beginning of that activity for a little while, if we can, to make that happen. And that would help out like a jump start, to let you know that I'm here and I might be back in a little while, you know. And I think that would help out a great deal if we could put that in place. And I think that's a great idea that you came up with, that we can make it happen.
Do we need a motion on this one?
You will have to, if you want to see these changes enacted, you will have to approve the ordinance. If you want us to do something else other than what's in this document, we need to know that too.
Well, I think there was some concerns about this,
Number,
section A. I
962.
don't know if that needs to be worked on or not.
I will tell you that section A, in terms of loud and disturbing noise, you're gonna find that kind of verbiage in most, ordinances that don't have an attached decibel limit with a decibel measurement. So there has to be something that a reasonable and prudent person would consider loud and disturbing. They seem to be two of the most frequent words used for that nuisance.
You use a word then that, has come up quite often in this situation, reasonable.
Reasonable, correct. And again, we realize that this terminology is subjective, but again, you have to have something to define why this is a nuisance to certain folks and why we deem it a nuisance under certain situations.
With that being said, do I hear a motion? We
Motion to
approve
approve.
this ordinance?
Motion to approve.
I second.
Have a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion at this time? Hearing none, all in favor?
I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, I understand what just happened. I mean, I know, I heard you talk about reasonable, but
If you end at 11 o'clock anyway, it doesn't really affect you. If you end at 11 o'clock, if you end at 11 o'clock, it really doesn't affect you.
we do end it at 11.
Yeah, right, so it doesn't affect you then.
Mayor, if the council is looking to approve this, I'll be glad to meet with Mr. Harris and answer his questions and sort of help him through the, I think he has a question about Section A, and be glad to meet with him and go over that with him.
Okay. All righty. No, hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Mr. Harris, our town attorney is gonna meet with you to let you know what the changes mean for the Moose Lodge.
Okay?
Okay?
Yeah, Mr. Harrison, I don't know if you want to wait for a few minutes. I'll talk with you before we leave tonight, or I can give you my telephone number. You can call me in the morning, either way. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 10, new business, is the fiscal year budget ordinance.
Brian's excited about his item. He's coming up to talk about the budget ordinance. And thank you, Brian. I'm happy to let you. You all have in your packet the budget ordinance for the fiscal year 2019-2020 per the way we have presented it and inclusive of all changes during our budget workshop. So we ask for council's consideration and approval.
We had a public hearing last Monday on the budget. It was pre-advertised, and I opened the public hearing, and not a single person was here. So I closed the public hearing, and tonight is the proper time that we vote on this motion. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda, budget.
Second it.
We have a motion to approve the budget. Is there a second?
I second it.
And a second. Discussion.
My concern is, again, I do appreciate the support of the girls' softball program. I appreciate the support of the chamber. But again, I promised people that I would vote beginning for reduction in utility rates. They should at least be down to what Greenville's rates are, since we have, part of our town is in Greenville. We're,
Councilman Moore, when you say utility rates, you are referring to electric rates.
right,
Okay.
electric rates. At least down to what Greenville is. So a person on one side of the street has Greenville, one side has one other side, they should be the same, or very close to the same. I thank Councilwoman Robertson for voting with me for a 5% reduction. That was a start. So I do oppose that for that reason, as well as the salary increase. When I came on the board in 1997, when the mayor, in December 1997, we received $250. While I was off the board in 3 and 4 and 5, it went up to $500, and that's come to $750. When we're not giving a reduction to the citizens, but we're on utilities, but we're increasing our pay, I just had a problem with that. Otherwise, that budget, it's not bad budget other than these items. I felt like I made a promise to people. When I first came on this board, in '97, I asked for natural gas. We got it the next year. I was very pleased that we got some money back this time. The first year we got reduction. We were supposed to get $75,000 from Greenville. We did for 1 year, and then somebody did away with it. And they would at least get $21,800 from Greenville for natural gas. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Any further discussion? The motion is to approve the budget. All in favor, please raise your hand so I can see. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, members of the council, I would like to thank you all, staff, and everyone's collaborative approach to getting the budget done this year. And that really actually started in January with the vision setting meeting, so thank you all for your efforts.
Okay. Item number 2 is the census resolution.
Hey, Brian.
Okay, there you go, buddy.
So I'm not here to present the 2020 budget, but the 2020 census. So we did have a Middies Commission hosted a meeting last month where there were members of U.S. Census Bureau there. They have requested that each municipality, in an effort to gain support, pass a resolution supporting the 2020 decennial census. We'll be part of Pitt County's Complete Count Committee. Basically, that's just an advisory board to the U.S. Census Bureau. So that's what we're asking you to do, is just to support it with a resolution tonight.
Will
You
you
have-
represent us on that committee?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the consensus for the census.
Resolution.
I like that.
Consensus for the census.
Okay, I second.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is Board of Adjustment member reassignment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as our current Board of Adjustment member makeup is at this time, we have our vacant, or I'm sorry, our ETJ alternate is actually now within our city limits due to Mellon Downs being annexed. So I'm asking for the board to reappoint our alternate member to be our regular alternate. So since he is technically in city limits now, he qualifies to be our regular member alternate. So that will leave a vacant ETJ alternate. We don't have any current members or any applications on file that would fit that criteria to fill that position as of right now.
Make a,
I make a
I
motion
make,
to approve.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, I make a motion that we approve Brian Miller.
Second, motion and second, any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Planning and Zoning Board appointments.
Okay, so currently on our Planning and Zoning Board, there are the number of members that are, terms are expiring. Those members are Peggy Clybourne, Douglas Killian, Gregory Monroe, Rondi Fleming, Darlene Gardner, and Mr. Robert Briley, who is our ETJ member. They've all expressed interest in being reappointed. You'll see Mr. Robert Briley has already been to the Board of Commissioners. They've granted his reapproval for the ETJ appointment. So it asks that you would reappoint them. And then also Miss Dawn Paletti has moved out of town, so she has resigned. So that will leave a regular member vacancy. And you'll see in your packet there are a couple applications. And Garrett Killian, these were received. I'll list these in the order we received. Garrett Killian, I will note that he was the first one received, but his first priority was Board of Adjustment, not Planning and Zoning. Mr. Michael Welding, Joseph Pierce, and Tucker Moore. So ask that you would reappoint the current city members that requested reappointment, and then appoint one of the 4 applicants.
I make a motion we appoint the present members and priority. Is it difficult one? Any preference you have at all?
I'll work with anybody.
Tucker Moore because he's on the planning board for Pitt County, have experience.
Have a motion.
Can you restate the motion? I'm sorry.
I make a motion we approve the
We
present.
couldn't hear the motion.
The present people, reappoint them again. Also, because Tucker Moore has experience on the Pitt County Planning and Zoning, we appoint him to the board to place Dawn.
I'd like to make a counter to that motion.
May I state the
Okay.
motion first? Mayor, the motion was to reappoint all members and to appoint Tucker
Yes.
Moore based on his Pitt County Planning Board experience. Is that correct, Mr. Moore?
Right,
Okay.
on your board.
And I said I'd like to make a counter to that as to reelect the others, but I was looking at Mike Weldon as for the board.
I think what we've got,
He needs to pull his off so that we can take them one at a time
Yeah.
outside of the ones that are already up there.
Maybe it's easier if we do the
Easier.
reappointments first, just
Make
as.
a motion we appoint the present members.
Second.
Okay. Now, discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now, we got another motion, if I hear it correctly.
Well,
you've got Mr. Moore's motion.
Nobody seconded, so
Okay.
I'll second Ms. Tynes' motion.
Hold up.
I don't think,
That's not right.
No.
yeah, we
I-
didn't,
We changed that
Changed,
motion.
right.
We just
Okay.
voted on
All right.
the reappointment.
correct.
Now we got to
So
make
now
a
we-
motion.
Now,
Motion.
anyone that
That's
wants to
right.
nominate
Right.
someone can do so.
Now I'm gonna make a nomination from here, and that nomination will be Mike Weldon
for the planning, open planning position. That's my motion.
You have a motion.
Are there any other nominees? I mean,
Right.
Tucker Moore.
Do you want me to run through them one more time? So in the order we received, Mr. Garrett Killian, although I will note his first priority was Board of Adjustment, second priority was P and Z appointment. Mike Weldon, Joseph Pierce, and Tucker Moore all listed a P and Z as first priority, and those, Mike Weldon was the first received, Joseph Pierce second, Tucker Moore third.
So we have 2 nominations.
Right.
And what alternate positions do you have?
Right now, for our planning and zoning, I have one ETJ member alternate, but I don't have any applicants that fit that requirement.
You have an opening on ECJ,
For planning and zoning,
for an alternate. That's what you're saying?
no, this would be a regular member position.
I'm asking you about your alternate positions.
Do we have an alternate position?
Yes.
We only have an ETJ on the planning board, right?
And I don't have that information in front
You
of me.
don't have an alternate planning and zoning member.
You're right that we do not have an alternate planning and zoning, regular alternate planning and zoning.
And Mr. Riley's been on there how many years? 40 years?
He's been up there a lot.
Dedicated man.
So Mr. Robert Riley would be our ETJ member, right? So, all right, so we're clear. Yeah.
So we got 2
And
nominations.
all 4 of these live within the township, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Town. Town.
Well, within the town, excuse me.
Right.
Let me get my terminology right, I'm sorry. Town, there's a difference. Okay.
Make sure I got it straight. We have 2 nominees for, how many, for one position?
One position, one seat, yes.
Okay. Do we do them one at a time?
I think that's how we've done it in the past.
Yeah, that's how you've done it in the past, Mayor, when you take
Okay.
nominations.
All right. And the first nominee that I heard was Tucker Moore. All in favor of Tucker Moore, please raise your hand.
See if I have a second.
Was that 2?
There's two,
Is-
No, I'm sorry.
2.
there was 2.
I think it's 2. All right. All in favor of Mike Weldon, please raise your hand.
3.
3.
I think it was 3.
3.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Congratulations, Mike.
Okay. I guess that takes care of the planning and zoning board adjustments, appointments, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, now the recreation advisory board appointment.
I dropped this down like I really need it. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Similar to Brian, we do have a few vacancies on the Recreation Advisory Board. We have received applications. Those applicants only fit or meet the criteria, rather, for the alternate position on the Recreation Advisory Board. They were all residents. And we do not have any vacant resident positions at this time. Our alternate may be a resident or a non-resident residing within the ETJ. Again, all these applicants are actually residents. We have 2 applicants that received, or that indicated RAB Recreation Advisory Board as their first priority. Dr. Paul Haven and Ms. Carolyn Wanzik. I believe I pronounced that name correctly. We believe that either applicant,
How do you spell that?
huh?
How do you spell that?
WANCZYK.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Pronounce it.
We believe that either applicant would be a great fit for the Recreation Advisory Board, and we leave it up to the town council to make an appointment.
I'm making a nomination for Carolyn Wanzak.
Second.
You nominating her.
Miss Carolyn Wanzak.
Is there a second?
Ms. Roberts?
I did.
I'm sorry. Any discussion?
Well, she's been in town much longer than the other gentleman has been, so it's a better choice.
I think we need, some female input on that recreation board.
Yep.
We do make a difference.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, the Stormwater Advisory Committee appointments.
The Stormwater Advisory Committee has 2 vacancies for full-time members or regular members and 1 vacancy for an alternate member. And luckily enough, we've got 2 people who have filled out the application and listed Stormwater Advisory Committee as their number 1 choice, and 1 applicant that submitted an application in Stormwater Advisory was his 4th choice. So we're recommending the 2 folks that applied with Stormwater as their number 1 choice be appointed as full-time members, and the other gentleman be appointed as an alternate member.
Will you name them?
Yes, ma'am. The gentleman who requested Stormwater Advisory Committee as his 4th choice was Dylan Brinkley. The 2 folks who submitted as Stormwater Advisory Committee as their number 1 choice were Randall Martosha and Chris Rickson. And that would fill all the open positions if these 3 were appointed.
I move that we accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to receive those names. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. All righty, number 7 is award the contract for the 2019 street improvement project.
The 2019 street improvements project originally consisted of Dare Court, Stillwater Drive, Cedar Ridge Drive, Railroad Street, Preston Trails Drive, and Jessica Drive. We knew we were tight on budget with the remaining funds in Powell bill for this fiscal year. So Cedar Ridge Drive and Preston Trails Drive improvements were bid as alternates. When we received bids, I think 2 Thursdays ago, even the base bid was still slightly over budget, so we made did some value engineering and made some adjustments only to Railroad Street, down towards the depot at Worthington Street. We've got some issues with the asphalt shoving there. Originally, we were going to dig up that northbound lane and do a major reconstruction, but to save costs, we're proposing just do a 2-inch mill and 2-inch overlay and then redo the pavement striping. Project also includes full reconstruction on Dare Court. It's in terrible shape over there in Manchester subdivision. And Stillwater Drive and Jessica Drive will receive some under drains. We've got issues with groundwater permeating the asphalt and damaging that. And also, lastly, actually, that's it, those 2. Dare Court, Stillwater, Jessica Drive, and Railroad Street. It's a total of 4 streets.
Accept brothers.
Second.
Discussion,
To approve.
To approve.
And Councilwoman Robertson seconded.
Right.
discussion,
Any discussion?
discussion. Hello? Terry and Travis, I know these contracts, these bids, are they sent out to minorities or contractors, or all the bids, or?
We advertise
We
requests
advertise.
for proposals.
Okay.
There are times where we will, if we know that people are interested, in addition, we'll send them directly.
We advertise in the paper and we direct solicit.
Okay, I just.
I believe at least one of the bidders was a minority
Okay, yeah,
certified.
just-
Carolina Earth Movers bid on the project.
Uh-huh.
And they've done work for
Out
us
of,
before.
out of.
And there was another one that I'm unfamiliar with. I'm not sure if they are or not. Bridgepoint Civil. I'm not sure about them,
Okay,
but
I
I'm
just
fairly
asked
certain
that
Carolina
question.
Earth Movers is.
I know on some things it's required, right?
Well, we advertise our requests for bids or proposals
Okay, yeah.
every time.
That was
It
my
was in the
question.
Daily Reflector, so.
Okay.
And what's it, the other page?
The drone.
The drum. We advertise in the Daily Drum too, don't
We do occasionally.
we? Yeah, I've seen advertisements in the Daily Drum.
Okay.
We don't always advertise in there, but we have. And
The name is escape. There's another paper that sometimes we advertise in as well. No, it's a minority publication. It's a minority publication. I'm trying to think.
It's the Daily Drum, man. That's the one I was referring to.
It's escaping me.
I'm trying.
Minority Voice is not, I don't think it's been published now.
Not to my knowledge.
I just had that question.
But it was publicly advertised
fine.
and it was a public bid opening and all that.
Sometime in the past, did I hear that it was gonna repave Cooper Street?
Yes, sir.
DOT project.
DOT is going to, as far as I know, repave. They've already marked it. In addition, it looks like they've marked Church Street as well. And maybe Mill Street. But I think they're getting ready to do a lot of paving in town.
I'm just totally excited. You said something about the west side of Winterville. I was just totally excited. I'm tingling now.
We try to look out for you.
That's right. There we go.
I know I asked you before about Chapman. Would you speak briefly about Chapman Street? Because I've gotten a lot of questions about Chapman Street.
So Chapman Street, we actually had it in last year's project, if you remember. But Boyd Street was still under construction, and we certainly didn't want to go over there and spend a lot of money attempting to make a repair over there, and then all that heavy construction traffic tear up what we had just done. We've also got the Chapman Street Culvert project, which should be going out for advertisement in the next month or so. We'd like to finish that project before we get in there and fix the road, because there's going to be a lot of heavy construction traffic on that road due to that as well.
So we're not taking it off the list. We
It's
just
not on the
postponed
list.
it
It's just
In
postponed.
an effort not to damage any work that we've done with other projects.
Another thing, if you'll remember, we had a lot of problems last year because of how wet it was. I think that was one of the major factors that played into all that additional work we had to do. It was wet all summer. It finally dried up 2 weeks ago, but now we're right back in that wet pattern. But it was a lesson learned, that last project, that if we can't hit it when it's dry, you might need to lower the amount of work you think you can get done in order to be able to afford it and have money available in case of a change order that you have to do.
Okay, I think we got a motion and a second on the
Yes.
2019 street improvement. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
All righty. Item number 8 is the award of the contract for the Kiwanis Field fence.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I do have a few things on the computer in case anybody wants to see. Somebody closed it on me. We solicited bids for replacement of the existing Kiwanis Field fence. You get logged in here. And as a result, we got quotes from 2 different companies and a number of no bids. The 2 options that we looked at for replacement was replacing basically as existing, a straight chain link fence. And then we looked at the option for what I think would be really cool, add to the experience of the players, the coaches, the parents, begin to really change the look out there, is replacing the existing backstop with a net backstop and a 2-foot tall brick wall, 16 feet wide. I think it's about 150 linear feet long, basically dugout to dugout, and then the remaining chain link fence. We did have some alternates in there as well, which would be the home run fencing, the outfield fence panels, replacing the chain link on that, but reusing the panels, and replacing the dugout fencing, the 4-foot tall dugout fencing that goes around those dugouts. Based upon the quotes that we received and cost, town staff recommends, and I'll show you this here in a second, town staff recommends going with the net backstop with the brick wall plus alternate 3, which is the brick wall itself. Total value for that is $45,517. And I wanted to show you and this is a local project, to show you what this might look similar to, in case anybody is uncertain of what I'm talking about. So this is a picture of very similar to what we're looking at, and this is the right field side. The 2-foot tall brick wall, the net, and all of the posts that would go with it. So it's a very nice looking product. I think that, again, I think that it will really add a lot to the park, to the field, give the kids that really neat playing experience. And just a few more pictures for you. So that's, again, same thing, just a different view. Again, different view. This one shows specifically how it anchors on the tops at the eyes, and then you see how it anchors into the brick wall. It's kind of hard to see, but there are eyes as you go along the brick wall and a tension wire that runs through that. One other thing that I wanted to show you, just for clarification's sake, in case anybody is uncertain of exactly what I'm talking about when we look at it, if this will open. Well, that's interesting. All I was going to show was the aerial of the field itself with the line shown as the base bid, and then the alternates 1 and 2 as well. And I can try to put this in if anybody specifically wants to see that. I'd certainly be happy to if anybody feels that that's necessary.
We accept alternate 3, the staff's recommendation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. How much, I'm just gonna ask, how much was the contract?
As staff recommended, which was the net backstop with the chain link, with the remainder chain link, that is $45,517. Oh, there we
All
go.
right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
Evan.
Thanks, Evan.
Thank you.
All righty, moving on, item number 11, are there any other agenda items?
I don't have any.
Okay, how about items for future agendas or work sessions? Okay, move.
Food truck. Brian, any orders coming about food trucks in town? I emailed him a few weeks ago about food truck ordinance.
Yeah, so I did contact Farmville's planning director to see what their meeting was with the Pitt County Environmental Health. Reached out to one of the food and lodging environmental health employees over there with Pitt County. Basically, there's not a whole lot to what they're doing. They did put together a permit requirement for the town of Farmville. I don't remember the specific amount, but it was on a yearly basis. It's basically what we do here in town. We do require a peddler's license if anybody's doing it. They have to be on private property. They can't be in a public right of way. They still have to be inspected by environmental health, have to have a grade and all that good stuff.
Can't just park along the road.
Can't just park along the road. We won't allow them to do that, obviously. So it has to be within private property. Unless it's a special event, like a Market on the Square type deal, where we invite them in, but we'll get them squared away on our end on that and that too. I'd be happy to look into getting something more formal for you, to present it to you at next meeting if you so desire.
That's okay.
But okay.
Thank you, Brian.
I asked about little houses several times. We don't have any ordinances about little houses.
We don't.
Tiny houses.
Mike Brown sent me how, the way the state views them in terms of the type of housing. So we can certainly, I'll be glad to share that with the
I know
council.
Pitt Communities they're building some out there now. And I was thinking that we might need to get ahead of the game. And,
What I'll do is I'll put together the information that Mike sent me and get that out to you all for your review. And then certainly if you want us to pursue that, after reviewing that information, we can move forward with that.
What should we do with Market on the Square? It had 5 people last week, 5 vendors. Any kind of plan, Market on the Square, to help it?
What staff has done and decided to do, and you all will be getting an email just sort of outlining what's coming, is we've decided that as opposed to every Thursday, we would back up to twice a month, 2 times in June and 2 times in July with specialty themes. and we'll get the flyer out to you so you'll know what those themes are. And then as we move into the fall and Christmas holiday season, we may have a couple of other dates where we would have a specialty market like we did when we had our tree lighting ceremonies. So with that said, we feel like that at this time, while we are continuing to look at our town common property, et cetera, that will be the best way to address Market on the Square. Josh Boston's with us again this summer. He was excited about coming tonight and seeing the meeting in person, but he's helping us out with the market, and he and Stephen and Amy and others have been working to try to come up with the best interim solution, and we feel like that'll be best for us currently.
The lady came tonight, she has some good food. Try to buy from her.
Well, she has been with us since the beginning, so we appreciate any and all comments regarding things we could do better, differently, or otherwise.
Okay. The next item are reports from the department heads. We'll start with anyone that wants to start. Looks like Evan wants to start.
And I'm back. Ms. Parker had mentioned the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, so I guess that was a good segue into it. Christmas parade and Christmas tree lighting ceremony seem a long ways away, but of course we have to begin planning for these things well in advance. After last year, staff had spoken about the potential for doing parade and tree lighting on the same date in an effort to make each one complementary of the other, to build off it, et cetera. What we had talked about for this year is moving the Christmas parade and tree lighting up to November 23rd, which is the Saturday before Thanksgiving. What we have talked about doing is starting the market at 12, the parade at 2, which is its traditional time, and the tree lighting at 6, again, which is the traditional time. Again, we thought about all of this so that they complement each other. The other thing that we see is on Christmas, on the Christmas parade date, our traditional date, we have, I'm not going to say competition at the same exact time, but there are a number of other parades that are going on the same day. So we do have, there is still competition in that regards. It takes floats and parade participants a while to get from one location to another, so certainly they can impact each other. The other thing that we see with the tree lighting ceremony, and I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but at least the past few years with Aiden doing a night parade, their parade has actually fallen on the same night as our Christmas tree lighting ceremony. So again, they're competing with each other directly. So that's why we have looked at this date, because there's a little bit less competition here locally. We think it's going to give the opportunity for the events to complement each other and things along those lines.
We also looked Thanksgiving dates, weekends. It's late in November this year. So if you get past Thanksgiving weekend and then the first couple of weekends in December to wait for the tree lighting ceremony, now it starts to get a little late to turn our lights on, if you will.
Turn our lights on Christmas Day.
Correct. So in an effort to try to, again, get out there early, have our events so that any and all who want to come, it feels early when we say November 23rd, but we actually are going to fall in line with other places in the state that have theirs early to kick off the tree lighting, like the lights around town, et cetera. So we anticipate that with the schedule that we've put together, it's going to be a lot of work for staff on that particular day, but we think it'll all work well together. And again, we would have our specialty market to complement our events on the same day.
That day, it's on the what, on a Friday?
That is a Saturday.
It's on a Saturday?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I think that, what's the Black Friday used to be on once on a Friday. Okay.
Right, and that's the day after Thanksgiving.
after.
So this should be prior to any of that stuff that's going on.
Any of that holiday madness.
Correct.
And I'll be honest, I ain't crazy about starting Christmas before Thanksgiving gets here.
I know, and we talked about it, but just dates didn't fall in our favor, so we understand that that's a challenge. We also felt like going into the second week of December was a little later than most folks wanted to see, but we're certainly open for council's direction.
And as a side note, the traditional dates, because I did write those down too, I believe if you went with the traditional dates, the tree lighting ceremony would be December 5th, and the Christmas parade would be December 14th.
Before Thanksgiving, I agree with Councilman Smith, it's very, very early.
I'm all for staying with the former dates, or the dates you just mentioned versus the 23rd. I just think that's a bit early. It's just my opinion. I don't know what they say about opinions.
Well, you
I
all,
agree.
that's what we're here for, to know how
Stay
to
with what we
proceed.
already had, at least we know it.
Well, are we?
It'd be a
are we
long
gonna
day
vote
at
on
the
it
23rd
tonight?
too. a long
Sure.
Well, we would ask that you at least give us some direction. If everybody wants to stay where we are, I don't know that a vote's necessary. We just wanted to have the conversation to see where you all were with it.
I think, well, usually when we have it and been having it during the years, we've had a lot of competition. There are 2 or 3 things going on that day. And of course, you know, we have our tree lighting and Aiden has theirs and kind of pulls people. Because you have parents with kids in the schools and everything that can't, you know, separate things. I'd say let's try it this year and see how it goes. Christmas, I mean, right now, stores are putting up Christmas. You know, you may not believe it. Go there to Hobby Lobby. They're putting up Christmas. So, I mean, this is, you know, even farther out than, you know, I can understand, Mr. Smith, that Christmas is getting to be earlier and earlier. You don't get Halloween or
If we leave it
Thanksgiving.
up to the stores will start selling Christmas in summer.
Well, they have it out now.
They're getting ready for Christmas in
Especially
July.
craft stores.
And it's a busy time of the year. We're not gonna make everybody happy. We got to celebrate what we do here in Winterville. We can't worry about Aiden, Greenville, and everybody else.
The only reason we bring it up is because of the ability to get certain bands, certain input from those that might otherwise want to participate.
We've had big crowds at parade, had the biggest crowd ever.
Oh, sure. Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Probably the biggest crowd, probably the biggest participation.
That we ain't gonna talk about Christmas till
I
Thanksgiving's over.
understand, and if Thanksgiving was not so late in November, we wouldn't be here prior to. It just, like I said, the dates didn't necessarily fall in our favor that way.
I make a motion that we have our Christmas tree lighting and our parade on November 23rd. The market at 12 o'clock, the parade at 2 p.m. We'll vote on it, and then whatever the majority feels, I can go along with.
But we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
And a second. Now, discussion.
The only concern I have with that date is, like I was speaking of, was Black Friday. Most of the time, good shoppers, they like to go out on that Friday night. And most of them, they'll stay out all night long. And you're talking about staying up all night long, and turn around and have to get up the next morning.
That's the next
No,
week.
Black
That's the
Friday
next
That's
is
going to be the next
following
week?
Yes,
week.
that's
It's
after
next
Thanksgiving.
This would be the weekend prior to Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm okay with it then. Okay, thank you. Let me pull my calendar out. Okay.
Councilman, we just want to go shopping, that's the deal.
I'm looking out for my wife and my pocketbook. Yes.
He said he's got to sleep before he can do the parade.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to hear the motion again.
I make a motion that we will have our Christmas tree lighting and our parade on November 23rd. The market will be at 12 and the parade will be at 2 p.m. This is on Saturday.
And the tree lighting at 6.
Tree lighting at
Starts
6?
at 6.
Okay.
All right. I have a question. When is Thanksgiving?
The following week.
Next week.
I got that right now.
I'm a sort of feel like, I guess I'm old fashioned. I'm sort of like Mark. I hate to see us have a Christmas, a great big parade and tree lighting and all that before Thanksgiving.
Welcome
That's
to the
my-
new
Here
millennium.
again, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. All opposed? I'm afraid the motion carries.
You're afraid?
Thank you.
Try to see how it works.
Okay. Who's next?
Well, Mayor, they're not all rushing up here at one time.
No, they're not. But we'll start down with, all the way on the end. Chief Moore,
I think they're all good, Mayor.
Police Chief. He's all right. All right,
Thumbs up.
Mr. Ben. There we go. I knew somebody would come.
Should have said we're good.
I got a question for the police chief just before you get there. That railroad crossing at Robinson, I know that school's out now, and I didn't say anything because school was getting out last week, but we had that rain this weekend, and those of us that live on this side that were not home had to find a way to get home because the crossbars were at Robinson. And finally, I came through there in a space about just big enough for my car.
Did they put them back?
Could you please, you
'Cause
know,
I
as far as
had-
next school year, please ask them on weekends
Oh,
if they would
yes,
move
yes,
those
yes.
crossbars.
I had
It's-
my
it's-
guys move them.
It's just,
I moved them twice last week.
this weekend,
Who put
with the
I
problem
did.
down at the depot, the water, down at the depot, you know, right at the depot where you were talking about.
It must be
The
the-
area there, the water was standing high. On the other side of the railroad, about midway down Railroad Street, you know, we get that little pond there.
Boyd Street.
Then we had, but they weren't there. If you could just make an effort to tell them to remove those barricades at the end of the day and on weekends.
I'll
I'd
contact the
appreciate it.
principal and tell her that that's being left in place.
Yeah, and I know school's out now, so we shouldn't have to worry about it.
Well, they should even take them up once the drop-off is over.
Supposed to, and it happened
They haven't.
for the longest time, but not
I've taken them
lately.
down personally last week
Yeah.
twice, and somebody put them back up during the middle of the
Yeah,
day.
I know.
Thank you, Travis and Chief.
I was just gonna inform the council, the manhole replacement went well last week. It went better than could be expected. We got a brand new manhole in the ground, it's paved up, and the road's back up, and it really went well. I had no complaints from anybody. I think the businesses were still able, everybody to access, the customers were still able to access the businesses. I know it was a minor inconvenience with Depot Street. The railroad crossing closed for one day, but it only lasted for about 8 hours, and then we're able to break that piping down and open the road back up. So hopefully nobody was too inconvenienced.
Travis, that was a good work by all involved, so thank you.
Thank you.
It was. I saw Travis out there dragging hoses, y'all. So I'm working. He earned his keep.
All right, Robert, you next. You got the thing?
We'll keep it brief. We are rerouting some primary conductor alongside where the building is immediately across the street, what will be the brewery. So we will, a part of that is we will have to have an outage. The only time that we could find that we thought was best, where everyone is hopefully closed, and it will affect the businesses along West Railroad Street between Depot and Main, will be Sunday morning. And we are targeting Sunday, June 30 for that outage. We hope that it's only going to be an hour or two. I think it'll be pretty minor, but it's something that needs to be done. And it'll provide a higher level of dependability to those customers as well.
What time?
We're going to meet here. Our guys be here when it's light enough to see, and we'll start the outage around 7.
Around 7?
Yep, yes, ma'am.
I don't think there are any churches involved, and
No, and we'll go door to door and talk with every business prior to that to see if anyone has a concern and anything in particular. We can certainly do all we can to accommodate what their concerns may be.
downtown.
Yep, just that one block.
Wanted to make sure, because I know when we said Sunday morning, ears may go up, but it should only be just downtown, a handful of businesses.
Yep. So Sunday morning, y'all pray for us.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we'll start down with our counselor.
Mayor, I have no report tonight, thank you.
I would like to thank Travis and the staff, the hard work they did on the pipe. I've never seen any group of people work so hard, so quick to get that job done. I mean, you lived out there. And weather cooperated with us too. Can't believe that. I mean, everything went well. I also like to say that last week we had a senior citizens event. We had 130 people there, and we fed them all an hour and a half, and then it was over with. Rain stopped, just like that. Worked out well. Thank the police chief for the ordinance that need to be changed. I'm like the mayor. I hear those up and down Cooper Street loud noises, not little cars, but also big trucks. And I had one of those motorcycles that had loud noise, and I got rid of my motorcycle loud noise. My motorcycle's not nearly as loud now. And but people are right about that. I also like to put on the agenda at some point in time talk about backyard ditches and tiling. Maybe the people pay part of it, but at least look. There's 12 different areas in town where people have ditch problems that are caving in, tile caving in 12 areas. Also thank the board for helping the girls. The girls' program, Sarah Law, is really under the gun financially. They're really suffering. I'm not coaching there anymore, but I did coach years ago. And they thank you for your support, board. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
I got two things from the meetings I've been to, because we've been talking about those meetings. We saw a presentation, Brian, on affordable housing, and I know that you have direct contact with the people, the developers in our area. Could you I'd like to see us start a conversation with them about some units as far as affordable housing options are concerned. And also, we learned about low cost, bridging the internet, the broadband gap. And in that presentation, they were telling us about the companies that supply internet services to our communities, and that many of them have plans, low-cost plans that people can qualify for to have internet in their homes for their students, especially those. I went on the site and I noticed that some of the criteria was having children in grades K-12, being on the school lunch program. And another thing I saw that was very interesting is that they were selling refurbished computers for desktops for like $100. So just want to get that information out there. Also, I'd like to extend our condolences to Joyce Mitchell's family. Her services will be Saturday at 10. She was an activist in our community, always working for the good of everybody. And we just extend our sympathy to her. That's it.
I'd just like to congratulate the fire department again. That ISO rating is great. You guys do a great job. Thank you for what you do. I'll take our fire department any day of the week, twice on Sunday.
Not literal.
I like to congratulate the public safety, police department, the way they was out there on the street last night with all that water that we had in the street. They were making sure that everybody detoured. I think we might have one or two that tried it. They weren't successful. But it won't be because that caution won't in place. I just want to say thank you. That's all I have.
Believe it or not, I have nothing.
Okay.
So that's a good night, people. I'm signing off.
How about you, madam?
You all have heard enough from me tonight, so I have nothing.
We'll just mention, I told the staff this morning about it. I received a phone call Saturday morning from a citizen of Winterville, lives, matter of fact, he told me he lived in Cornerstone. He was really upset because he had read the paper, and I'm not gonna call the name of the paper, but it was not the Aiden paper. And he says, I see where you all are getting a raise. You all meaning the town council. And I said, well, he said, I don't think you're getting enough. Well, in the paper, it reported that we would be receiving council members $500 and the mayor $750. We've been receiving that for the last, I guess, 15 years or more, something like that.
16.
They left out the part that we are actually getting a raise. And when I told him what it was, he said, "You deserve it." So, all you council members, we got one supporter, a citizen in Winterville, if no others.
Mayor, I told a fib. May I make one statement?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank Mr. Carr for coming tonight, and I appreciate your comments that you've been putting out there on social media. But there has been a lot of social media activity about electric rates in Winterville, and people are entitled to their opinions, and I appreciate them. I would ask, though, and I put this out to all members of the public, to please obtain the information so that people are accurately informed about rate information and what they're paying individually and how that compares to areas around. I'm seeing some concerning information that's being put out there that makes me wish that more people called for the information, or at least go to the website and try to get the budgetary information. We're happy to do anything we can to get people their own specific information or comparable information, but I do ask that people stay informed or try to educate themselves on the whole picture. Electric bills include water, sewer, garbage, stormwater. There's a lot to that bill, and it's just not the electric rates in town. So I'm available, I know staff's available, and we just encourage people to ask questions and get the information. Thank you.
I started to mention it when you were speaking. Winterville's rate is less than our adjoining town south of us. It's less than Greenville. It's less than Farmville.
It may not be currently less than Greenville today, but I would encourage people to look historically at periods of time and what's encompassed in all of that. And there's more to just the story than the specific number on this date. So, thank you.
Hearing no other comments, do I hear a motion we adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you everybody for coming.
I forgot to announce.
No meeting in July.
No meeting in July. Thank you.
That's right, I meant, we meant to meet.
Tony, you have a nice evening, sir. Good to see you. Yes, sir.
Good.